Today's Ratchet Tubi movie is called Kitty Hollow Killer. And yes, that is referring to someone's kitty and it being gaping and hollow. The story kicks off with Mason and Jessica finally tying the knot after 6 long years of being together. After the wedding, Mason chills with his best friend Chris. Chris congratulates him, joking that Jessica is probably mourning that she only gonna have one D now. Eventually, Jessica shows up and Mason leads her to the car, ready to start their dream honeymoon. But on the way, they get into a nasty accident. And although Mason survives, Jessica is rushed to the hospital in critical condition. About 3 weeks later, an unidentified person is found dead at a spot where another murder occurred, eerily similar to ones before. While the case is aired on the news, Jessica regains consciousness for the first time since the accident, but she doesn't remember the wedding or that she got rammed. In her mind, she's still single, working at a restaurant, and it's 6 years ago in 2019. She don't even know about the pandemic. Mason is devastated when he learns that she suffers from retrograde amnesia. But on the bright side, the nurse assures him her memories will be back in bits and he needs to take things slow. When Mason and Jessica finally meet, Jessica is shocked that she's married to a man whose lineup is looking like that. But the moment Mason holds her hand, she recalls the day she got married to him and becomes emotional, happy she's not with a diabetic man. Outside, before the nurse leaves, Mason asks to confirm if Jessica has had any specific male visitor since the accident, and she says no. The following day, Jessica's final tests are conducted, and she's set to be discharged from the hospital. But once she gets home, she's devastated her farm style. Live, laugh, love decor is nowhere to be seen. Mason says to give it time, and he shows her around the place, except one room. Nah, this is getting sussy. What y'all think is going on behind those doors? When she asked why the exception, he fumbles an excuse saying it's filled with junk. Though she doesn't buy it, she lets it slide and allows Mason to take a call. While Mason is on the phone, Jessica is terrified when she overhears him calling himself a killer. The way my jaw stayed shut. So at night, she pretends to fall asleep, tricking Mason, who heads out for one of his late-night runs. Meanwhile, a flash from the past suddenly hits her. About 6 years ago, Mason and Chris were hanging out at the restaurant where she used to work. That was the first time Mason saw her, and right then, he told Chris she was the one. Chris dared him to shoot his shot, and although he got curved hard on the first try, he kept pushing until Jessica agreed to go out with him. This memory lands heavy, and now in the present, Jessica starts to question everything. Girl, that fedora hat would have been the first red flag. The next morning, Mason notices her dull mood, mostly because she declined a cup of coffee from him, which is her usual go-to every morning. However, news about another body found at the Kitty Hollow Park catches Jessica's attention. Before she can listen to more of it, Mason turns the TV off, and like a dumb Oz, she confronts him about being out last night, pointing to him possibly being the killer. Mason says he didn't do anything, and is shocked she knew he was out. Later that morning, before Mason leaves for work, he tries to get the usual goodbye kiss, but Jessica tired of his hairline, so she curves him. In his absence, Taylor asks what's wrong, and Jessica tells her she feels something's off about Mason. Taylor reassures her, reminding her they've been together for 5 years, and Mason is the perfect guy. Still, Jessica can't shake the feeling that Mason is living a double life, but she brushes it off and gets ready to go out. That evening, when she gets home, someone tries to open the door, and it's her crackhead brother, Omar. Jessica lets him in and tells him she suspects Mason of being the murderer. Omar says they need to find solid evidence, so Jessica leads the way to their bedroom to find something on him. While searching, Omar steals Mason's wristwatch, and when they don't find anything on Mason, he tells Jessica he knows a guy that can dig deeper. Y'all didn't think to search the room he refused to show? They got some Tubi-level brain cells. Since it's late, he gives her his number and prepares to leave, only for Mason to pull up on the driveway, and Omar is forced to sneak out through the back. Once in, Mason feels something's off, but he lets it slide and goes to bed. A few days later, Jessica acts brighter than usual towards Mason, but the moment she sees the news about a missing Pastor Miles, the man who officiated her wedding, she calls Taylor and tells her she believes Mason's behind it. After the call, she's scared when she bumps into Mason, but fumbles an excuse to go out for a run. Mason really sussy of Jessica now because the only runs she does are late-night runs to Jack in the Box. That afternoon, Jessica meets with Omar, who tells her his friend is looking into Mason. But when Jessica asks if he took Mason's wristwatch, she realizes he's doing drugs again and walks away from him. The next day, Mason hosts Chris and Taylor at the house. While the guys hang out outside, Taylor admits Chris makes her coochie purr, but Jessica's not interested in small talk. She's focused on proving Mason is a killer. Taylor tries to talk her down, but Jessica is convinced Mason is hiding something upstairs. The moment Taylor steps outside, Jessica sneaks upstairs and unlocks the room, where she discovers she had a daughter named Denise. Gagged. I did not expect that. Memories of giving birth come flooding back, and she breaks down in tears. When Mason shows up, he's emotional too, and finally confesses that their daughter died because Jennifer, their nanny, left Denise with her abusive husband. Jessica is heartbroken and furious that Mason never told her. Mason insists he didn't want to burden her because she was already going through so much. Still, Jessica tells him to F off. He leaves and quietly escorts the guests out. Alone upstairs, Jessica remembers Denise's funeral. Back then, Jennifer came to apologize for what her husband did, but Taylor shut her down and sent her away. As Jessica reflects on this memory, Mason comes to comfort her and promises never to keep any more secrets. About 4 years ago, when Jessica found out she was pregnant, Mason was overjoyed and offered to marry her. Though Jessica didn't want to get married just because she was pregnant, especially since they'd only known each other for under a year, Mason didn't care. In the present, Jessica is still furious at Mason for hiding the truth. Taylor apologizes too, but when news breaks about the missing Pastor Miles, Jessica becomes convinced Mason is behind it. When Taylor defends him, Jessica walks out on her, pissed. Later, Taylor tells Mason how Jessica feels. But when Jessica walks in on them talking shit, she feels betrayed. She calls Mason a killer. He denies it, but Jessica says she heard him on the phone admitting to killing someone. When she threatens to leave, Mason raises his voice and insists she stay in the house until her memory fully returns, so she can realize how wrong she is. Do y'all know where this is headed? The next time Jessica meets with Omar, he admits he found nothing on Mason. But when she asks why he never said anything about her daughter, Omar says he didn't even know she had one, because he claims Mason kept her from him ever since they met. Jessica pieces things together and realizes that the murder victims are mostly pedos and rapists. She thinks Mason is doing it as some type of justice for his late daughter. Before she leaves, she notices Omar's shades, takes them off, only to see that he was beaten up. Then it hits her that Mason is behind it, and she storms him to confront him. Mason says he did it to protect her, and when Jessica says otherwise, he shows a restraining order she placed on Omar, but she trusts her brother more than Mason. Again, she asks Mason about the call he made the other day, and he admits he's a killer. Terrified, Jessica attacks him, but slips and faints as she tries to run away. In the past, about 2 weeks before the wedding, Mason was on a date with Jessica when Omar showed up, clearly high, and Mason was forced to send him away. Then Mason received a notification that Jennifer had been found dead in her car, and the authorities ruled it as a suicide. Jessica recalls this moment as she regains consciousness, and Mason agrees to finally tell her the truth. He takes her back to the day of their wedding and reveals that there was one person who didn't survive the crash, Jonathan, the driver. Mason explains that Jonathan was like family to him. He had been on vacation but canceled to help out with the wedding, only to die in the car crash. Up until now, Mason blames himself for Jonathan's death, and although he's in pain, he apologizes to Jessica, and they make up, the kind where Mason breaks her back all night. The next morning, Jessica is in high spirits, mostly because she couldn't get enough of Mason's eggplant dish last night. But things take a turn when she listens to an old voice message from the day before her wedding. The voice isn't Mason's, it's someone named Jeremy, and he mentions a planned honeymoon in Paris. Before she can process it, the news breaks that Chris has been found dead. Terrified, Jessica calls the police and reports Mason for Chris's murder, and the others before it. But at the station, she's told that Mason will have to be released. There's no solid evidence tying him to the crimes. Her memories are still all over the place, just like this plot. And to top it off, the voice from the message doesn't match Pastor Miles, since it's Jessica's brother-in-law, Jeremy. The detective explains that Jeremy's statement only confirmed how confused she's been lately, proving she's in no state to be making serious accusations, even in Chris's fresh case. Then he tells her to stay away from Omar since a warrant for his arrest has already been issued. The following day, Mason returns home and Jessica's tripping. She still tries to act tough, accusing Mason of being behind the murders. Even when Mason argues that he'd never harmed Chris since they go way back, Jessica tells him she's sure he's the killer. When Jessica remembers Jennifer's death, it fuels her suspicion. She's hell-bent on proving herself right, but before she can do anything, she falls unconscious due to her spiked coffee. When she wakes up, she receives a text from Mason, telling her to meet where they tied the knot. On getting there, rather than finding Mason, she meets Taylor instead with a gun and realizes that she might be the serial killer. When asked where Mason is, Taylor reveals that she drugged him too. Earlier, Mason had a spiked drink, and after he passed out, Taylor showed up and dragged him away. Now, how are we supposed to believe this skinny little girl moved that tall big man on her own? In the present, Jessica is shocked when Taylor admits she's behind Chris's death. She said she did it because he tried to spike her drink when they went out, and she's sick and tired of rapists and pedos. Scared, Jessica tries to run, and when Taylor notices, she shoots a bullet in the air to change her mind. Meanwhile, Mason regains consciousness at the back of the church and knocks Taylor out before she can harm his useless wife. Right then, the cops arrive and everyone's pretty shocked that Taylor was behind everything. Finally, Jessica apologizes for blaming Mason for the murders, but something strange happens the following day. She receives a letter from Taylor that reads, "Your secret is safe with me." At that moment, she recalls how she murdered Pastor Miles on the day of their wedding, and Taylor was forced to clean after her and hide his big back body. She was driven by her daughter's death and was all about eliminating rapists and pedos. When Taylor asked about her brother Omar, she recalls the time when she learned about Jennifer's death. She wished her husband died instead. Then she tells Taylor she tried to help Omar, but the drugs were ruining him. This memory hits her in the present, and she smiles, realizing that she's gotten away with everything. What in the actual hell was that plot and ending? I was expecting Jessica was behind everything. This Taylor side plot ain't shit. I'm still confused about the characters' motives and who killed who, to be honest. What did you guys think of this one? Y'all always keeping me in Tubi hell.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.